Hello, you and all, and welcome to Fadoodle version 2. Last time we made a serious discussion-y piece. It did exceptionally well, managing to surpass 150 views, which in a matter of 2 days, which honestly I am absolutely honored that you all love the style of content where I just talk about something. I find that absolutely inspirational and I'm very grateful to you all. However, it was from the channel's currently most popular video where a user by Marco ATF stated in the comments section,
There will be no classic cars in F1 2021.
whilst I phrased my response very elegantly, in the back of my mind I was thinking, surely they would never take the classic cars out. They're too iconic. They have been a staple of the Formula One games for bygone years now. But then I thought about it on closer examination, and it actually got me thinking, would classic cars ever be removed from the Formula One game? It's an interesting question, and today that's what we're going to tackle. Will in the future Formula One games we have no more classic cars? Well, what am I talking about? Classic cars. Well, for those of you who do not know what a classic car is inside of the Formula One video game, a classic car is an older machinery that is not produced for that current season's Formula One game, but is included into the game as additional content. This can range from the entire sport's history, but as already established, it has to be a car that has participated in the Formula One World Championship Series. Now, each team, usually speaking, makes a car per year on average. Of course, in 2021, some teams have just made evolutions, which are referred to as B cars, but on the most end, teams typically make, especially nowadays, one chassis that will carry the team through an entire year's worth of racing. So classic cars are a way to incorporate people's nostalgia for said car. Take, for example, Formula One 2019. That celebrated Codemasters' 10 years of holding the Formula One license. They added in the 2010 McLaren and Ferrari, despite already having the 2010 Red Bull back from Formula One 2017. They did this purely to evoke people's nostalgia for the Formula One video games, and also the 2010 season itself, as it is regarded, or at least certainly in the 2010s decade of Formula One, as one of the best the decade ever provided. Despite some community members have been advocating for classic cars since 2012, and despite them appearing in Formula One games since 2004, let's be brutally honest here. Do people really care about the cars themselves? And that is what this video will answer. It's purely an opinion piece, so this is going to be just pure speculation on my end, and do not take anything as verbatim or gospel. You may wish to engage in this in the comment section below. And without much ado about nothing, let's answer the question. Do people really want classic cars anymore? A lot of you may be saying, but Jellybean, what is the difference between an F1 car and driver? I thought they were just the same. So to clear this up, in case if the one person who's clicked on this video has no idea what Formula One is, the difference between a car and a driver, it is simple. The car is the thing that a team, or better known as a constructor, makes in order to participate in the championship. They have to be mostly identical, and they have to manufacture 2 cars. You could, back in the day, have up to like 5 different drivers and 5 cars, but since 1981, that has been clamped down to just 2 cars per team every single season. Now, the drivers, plurally, are the people who
get into said car and drive it around in circles for approximately 90-ish minutes. So that is the difference. Now, the thing is that the cars themselves do not talk. Okay, they make a noise, they emit noises that a lot of people do seem to enjoy. That's why excuse me, I've got to get the right impression on them. Bring back the V12s brigade is so strong, and especially was during 2014 when Formula One went from the V8 engines to the V6 turbo hybrids, which did decrease the sound and obviously detracted some people away because they couldn't have their loud screamy thing at the back of the cars. Oh, people seem to like the engine sounds. You won't find as many people out of this sample, shall we say, that actually care about the cars specifically. Now, of course, there are always going to be some, but I believe the majority reason why people care about classic cars is that rather than having to traipse around and find their PlayStation 1 or 2 and pop in a disc of Formula 1 2004 to drive around in Nigel Mansell's 1992 Williams, they want to have it on the modern piece of hardware. And thus, by having the loud screamy thing, it allows them to satiate their appetites for loud engines without destroying the environment as much as actually running those old retro cars in the flesh throughout a Grand Prix calendar. So think about it this way. The drivers are the element that are the quote-unquote public faces of the organization. People get far more attached to the drivers emotionally rather than the cars. Take, for example, the former championship called Robo Race, a show, motorsport actually, where teams would construct cars to drive themselves. The fact that none of you probably knew what it was goes to show how little people actually care about the machines themselves. They don't really care because it's the drivers that they constantly see. It is the driver physically pushing the car forwards. It is the driver who, when they win the race, they scream on the radio and say, "Yes!" And it's the driver who says, or puts a swear word in whenever something doesn't go their way. When Formula One 2021 decided to introduce some iconic drivers into the game, as, should we say, the new form of delivery classic content, it made people actually excited that now they get to have their old drivers, the people who they got attached to. They are far more emotionally invested in Felipe Massa's 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix rather than the F2008 as an overall package. Would you not agree? I mean, the car doesn't take any of the emotional, responses from the fans because it literally cannot talk, it cannot react. It is impossible for a car to be relatable to a human being in a realistic sense. Sure, people might make fantasies about cars, and yes, okay, there are some people who really like their cars, but on the whole, at least from what I can depict from Formula One, people more care about drivers than the cars themselves. Take, for example, Quadrant, a brand new YouTube channel created by Lando Norris, who, by the way, is a Formula One driver, not sure if you knew, and that channel managed to surpass 100,000 subscribers shortly after its release. Now, no disrespect to the other content creators here, but I believe it would have taken a little bit longer had Lando Norris not been publicly acknowledged and been involved in the videos. Because people are emotionally invested in Lando because he is, to some people, their knight in shining armor who's driving these expensive cars around in circles for about 1.5 hours, approximately every 2 weeks for every year of their life. But Jellybean, I hear you say, what about the company? Surely Codemasters would never have the disintegrity to just remove such a feature that fans were clamoring for, and that back in F1 2017 was one of the main selling points of the game. That, I would have to say, nowadays is up in the air. This is because Codemasters, for those of you who do not know, were purchased by Electronic Arts, and more specifically the Electronic Arts' sports division, at the start of 2021, meaning that EA now owns Codemasters. Why is this significant? EA as a company created FIFA Ultimate Team, but you could replace FIFA in that word with Madden Ultimate Team, NHL Ultimate Team. You get the point. Ultimate Team, a mode in which is notorious as basically child gambling, and bar Belgium, EA still get away with it. It makes them billions of dollars year on year because of the hope that if they pay a couple of pounds or hundreds of dollars or even thousands of euros in some extreme cases, they'll be able to pack, which is the term of acquire, a rare, desirable player that they can sell onto the market and then get loads of coins, which are used to then upgrade their team and their club. So, and part of this, because of how profitable and gambling like FIFA Ultimate Team is, or Ultimate Team is generally, it has meant that because none of the other modes can provide that much financial income to EA as much as Ultimate Team, they usually ignore the other modes or give them very little attention in the first place. One example for a long time was Kickoff mode, which in the FIFA 13 installment, based off the 2012-13 season, they introduced classic kits that you could buy through the EA Club Store. I believe that's what it is called, but quote me if I'm wrong. Basically, you would earn tokens simply by playing FIFA, i.e. playing Ultimate Team loads. In return, you can then purchase things in the shop. This system lasted from FIFA 13 all the way until FIFA 20. Some of the items included being able to get more coins in your Ultimate Team, have more players on the bench, have specific player upgrade attributes in player career mode, or more interestingly, as they highlighted in the promotional introductory video to FIFA 13, classic kits. These were kits of a very long time ago that if players purchased them, they could adorn onto their onto their clubs in kickoff mode and I believe career mode, but quote me if I'm wrong on that one. Obviously, that was subject to licensing available. However, sadly, like so many other features in the FIFA Career Mode series, or just FIFA game generally that is not Ultimate Team, they decided, going into the 2000 FIFA 21, to remove this service, and, in turn, remove the classic kits. But do you see many people kicking up a fuss on social media? For newcomers to the FIFA space, there was a mode called #SaveCareerMode. For a while, it was a very popular Twitter, Instagram, social media tag that told EA specifically to fix career mode because it was just so abandoned. And that was from a mode that was getting more and more stale than trying to eat yeast every day. However, did we see a movement called #SaveClassicKits? No, we did not. And the simple reason is that whilst EA or Electronic Arts put this behind, I would not say a paywall, since they put it behind more of an internet connection. You see, in order to connect to this EA service, you had to have, well, an EA Origin account and then connect that to your FIFA games. basically meaning if you don't have an Origin account and connect to their servers, you therefore cannot have all this lovely classic content. So that's ultimately a big sign to me that people do not care about football kits. However, how many people get excited when they pack a football legend? Linking it back to Ultimate Team here, in FIFA 14, so the following installment after they introduced the classic kits, they introduced legend players. These were players exclusive to this Ultimate Team mode that were former footballers of a bygone era. You could pack them in standard packs, originally exclusive to Xbox consoles, and they would be really highly rated versions of iconic footballers, such as Pele, Teddy Sheringham, and eventually people like Maradona and Ruud Gullit, among many, many, many others. I do not need to tell you all the FIFA videos between FIFA 14 to now, where it is either I have packed this legend or did we pack this icon in the thumbnail and title, or of similar thumbnails and titles. You will see how people get extremely excited. Either that, or they've just packed so many legends, or the video is a try not to react challenge to getting, I don't know, Poyel, for example. Poyel? It's Poyel, isn't it? P-U-Y-O-L. Poyel. How do you say that footballer's name, Poyel? He's centre-back at Barcelona. I'm genuinely curious on that one. So, with that side tangent aside, how does this link back to Formula One? Well, first of all, EA owns Formula One, and they will ultimately want to influence the Formula One game, basically to have more microtransactions and to follow the EA style of making video games. As such, it's important to stress this. People do not care as much about the jerseys that the footballers wear or the cars that the Formula One players drive in, because they are inanimate, they are unrelatable. You know, humans cannot turn into a Formula One car, can they? Okay, maybe on DeviantArt, but in the literal sense, they cannot do that. And likewise, you cannot turn into a football jersey. And despite football jerseys being far more relatable in the sense that consumers can go to the club shop, pay extortionately overpriced prices for an annual purchase, and then get themselves the same attire as what their players are wearing, ultimately, there is not much individual personal investment like another human. Human to human relations and investment are far more powerful for brands than, say, to an object. Because with both football and Formula One, people care about the athletes. They do. They are more interested in Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo's Instagram account. I mean, do you want to? He's one of the most popular influencers in the world right now, and he's 36 years old and a footballer. People, there's a reason why. Because people are interested in Cristiano Ronaldo's life. Now, tell me this: if we had a Instagram page for Euro 2004's Portugal jersey, do you think it would get on the same near amount of numbers as Cristiano Ronaldo's? You may want to answer that in the comments below, actually. And likewise, would we really have the same amount of Instagram followers that Lewis Hamilton has compared to a page that was talking about his 2007 McLaren only, for example? In my opinion, my personal thoughts, it is a straight up obvious no. A car isn't relatable to a human. Heck, most people will never even sit in a Formula One car and actually get to drive it around. Most people can buy a football kit, but they will never have the experience of wearing the football shirt to a match day and actually being inside the stadium and kicking the ball around. They will never have that experience. Thus, it is emotional detachment. And I believe personally, with Electronic Arts in charge, knowing how people didn't really care about classic kits in the FIFA games, and they were there for a few FIFAs, by the way, at the peak of FIFA's popularity, I would not be surprised actually if Marco's comments came into reality. Maybe not for F1 2021, but maybe more so by the mid 2020s, that classic cars are completely gone. Classic cars, as you know, a vehicle, cost time and resources and money. Let's talk about from the time. First of all, you have to find an actual machine that's working, which is much easier said than done because, well, it's a Formula One car. They don't typically produce many of them. I'm no team boss of Formula One yet, but I can tell you this now, they do not produce many versions of the same car. Secondly, you have to get permission to actually grab all the audio files from that. Then, if you're going to do a driver-specific theme, like what we saw in the 2020 game with Michael Schumacher or the Prost vs. Senna edition in 2019, you need to pay for the driver's personalized stickers, and you need to pay to get all the sponsors on the car, which will cost inevitably loads of money. We're combined, when we're adding all the classic cars, it's certainly going to be in the thousands. I'm more saying maybe in the hundreds of thousands. It could be, but we don't know, but that is a genuine possibility, and that is a huge financial burden. Or something that, let's be really honest here, does not populate servers. From my experience on the Formula One game, some people play with classic cars, but usually most people will stick to the current Formula One season that's advertised in the game, or they'll go to the multiplayer car online. And in single player, well, now that they have reduced the amount of championships from the plethora we used to get from F1 2017 and 19 down to just 2 handful in F1 2020, along with the invitational events, it does really beg the question, are we going to see classic cars eventually be removed and replaced with the things that people are more emotionally invested to, the people who drove the cars? Personally, in the end, after a nearly 23-minute waffle, I believe yes, because, to keep it short, classic cars themselves are unattachable emotionally. People cannot get emotionally invested in a car as much as a Formula One human driver. The drivers are what champion the team's ideas, branding, image, etc., etc. Take, for example, just to end it off, Nikita Mazepin. How many people were enraged by what he did when he posted that post to Instagram? So many people were furious because people are more emotionally connected to other humans doing something bad rather than, I don't know, a Formula One car losing steering and forcing a driver to go into a wall, for example. Thus, classic cars will, I do not know when, but at some point will be completely eradicated and replaced with the drivers who piloted these machines to success. What do you all think? Leave your comments down below, and don't forget to engage with this video, and as always, stay safe and stay wonderful. Take care, you and all.